Hello, it's Eureka, your host of the Happy Child series. Welcome back to another episode. Today we have with us Mary O'Malley. She is an author, teacher, and counselor whose work awakens others to the joy of being fully alive. Her inspired and transformative approach to being with life, no matter what's happening, offers a way to replace fear, hopelessness, and struggle with ease, well-being, and joy. She's dedicated her life to helping others to heal by seeing the conditions they took on that blocks them from life's joy.
Mm.
Through her individual counseling and coaching, online courses, books, classes, retreats, radio shows, blogs, and ongoing groups, Mary invites people to experience the miracle of being present for their life. So,
Mm.
welcome. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, so glad to be here.
And I mean us with this audience as well as us.
Ah, yes, right.
um, um, you guys make sure you behave, okay? Sorry, so I'll apologize ahead of time if they are running around behind me. Well, without further ado, Mary, can you share with us a little bit about you and the work that you do?
Well, I was gifted with the kind of childhood you wouldn't wish on anybody. And I just went into darker and darker places and pretty soon didn't want to live anymore. And then in my late 20s, a teacher came into my life that taught me how to be curious about what I was experiencing rather than being at the mercy of it. And then about 10 years later, another teacher came into my life that just changed my life because he showed me how to come home to my heart. And then life began to ask me to teach, and I said, no, 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 no. And then life kind of threw me in the middle of the teaching ocean, and here we are. And I've written many books and have traveled the world, and am just so very grateful that number one, life showed me the pathway out of darkness. But number two, allows me to serve all of humanity because we are living in a very challenging time. But there is a pathway out of that and into the connection and trust and aliveness that we long for.
Beautiful. I love that you said that, to be curious about what
Mhm.
you're going through. And I think, even with that word, there's it takes away the judgment of like this is good or this is
Yes.
bad. It's just curious. I wonder what is going on right
What
now.
is this? Right.
Mhm,
Not the kind of curiosity that tries to figure it out, but
mhm,
the kind of curiosity where your attention and your immediate experience come together. Because we're only beginning now to realize the phenomenal healing power of our own attention.
mhm. Yeah, Mary, you have a book coming out, or that's already out right now. It's called What is in the Way is the Way, which
Hmm.
was such an interesting title because I'm like, what do you mean by that? Can you
Uh-huh.
share a little bit about your book?
Well, I think it's so appropriate that you brought that up because we're talking with families with challenged children. And boy, is that a challenge. And it's so easy to be overwhelmed by that and to be stressed by that and to be, kind of lost by that. And yet, when we live life that way, life is happening to us. And we have a tendency to feel like a victim, and the victim can get angry, and the victim can get very sad, and the victim can really truly freeze. Whereas if you begin to comprehend that your life is for you, it's not happening to you, it's happening for you. And years ago, I started what I call my yes file. And it is now 9 pages long, and it is full of quotes from everybody from Eleanor Roosevelt and Thomas Edison to Buddha, Eckhart Tolle, and all of these quotes are basically saying that your life is for you. One of my favorite is Eckhart Tolle, who is wrote the New York Times bestsellers New Earth and The Power of Now, and he says life will give you the exact set of experiences you need in order to become a conscious human being. How do we know they're the right set? Because you're having them. Now, It's hard to begin to, comprehend that just possibly having a challenged child is for you. I mean, we so deeply want our children to be healthy and whole, and when they have challenges, then we want them desperately to be happy, but that's even more challenging. But when you begin to realize and move from the place that life is happening to you to life is happening for you find yourself having more energy. You find you don't get so caught in the world of struggle. You find you're able to be more present with your child. But even most importantly, you find you're able to access this deep wellspring of wisdom inside of you that does know exactly what to do in any given situation. So all of a sudden, you're not alone. You're partnering with life in caring for this precious child.
Yeah, I love that because I think a lot of times when we ask the question of like, why me? Why did this
Yeah,
happen to
yeah,
me? If we
yeah,
can rephrase that and say, why is this happening for me? It
exactly.
totally
Yeah,
changes the direction of like, it just opens
yeah,
the world of possibilities. Like,
yeah.
why is this happening for me? Um,
Exactly, exactly. What are the treasures?
mhm,
There's always, I've done so many blogs and radio shows on, the gifts that are embedded in the great challenges of our lives. And if you really read the biographies of people that have made a difference, they always have gone through huge challenges in their lives. And so to let go of happening to you, to happening for you, then you can begin to say to life, okay, I'm ready to gather the gifts that are embedded in this very challenging situation.
mhm. How would somebody start making that transition like in their brain? Because I think a lot of times we live through life, saying, one operating in one way. And then we're introduced to this new concept of
Yeah,
like, yes, I would love to start thinking like, why is this happening?
yeah,
How is this happening
yeah.
for me? But it's not so easy to make
No,
that
no,
change.
no.
Do you have a
Mhm.
strategy or a tip for that could help that process?
Well, first of all, it is a major shift. And just like, it's winter, it takes a while for it to become spring. And then it takes an even longer while for it to become summer. And so it's a novel concept to many people when they begin to hear it, and our minds will never agree with this. Our minds will say, well, no, this is not for me, and I don't like this, and I don't have to like this. But to discover, to begin to have moments, and this is so important for all of us, but especially if you are have a challenged child, to take quiet time, maybe to go out and just sit in the garden without any technology with you, without a glass of wine, you know, uh, and just discover your long, slow out breath. And it is one of the most powerful ways we can learn to breathe because it massages our vagus nerve, which is the key to turning on the calming aspect of our nervous system. And even a little bit of quieting down, we begin to see there's something bigger than us in charge. We begin to notice that spring comes forth out of winter without us thinking a thought. We begin to see that everything in our yard was once just a seed. And then it grew into what it is today without efforting. And then we begin to notice that, oh my God, my heart beats, but I don't have to beat it. And then we take it even deeper and we begin to see, well, at some level, I am being breathed by life. If you doubt that, just stop breathing. But even more importantly, you begin to understand that at one time you were just one cell that was so tiny, you couldn't even see it with the naked eye. And it developed into 30 trillion cells that make up you. And those 30 trillion cells all work together without a thought from you. Wow. you begin to see that there is an intelligence greater than your own limited mind that is in charge of life, that keeps the planets spinning as they do, that heals the cuts on your skin. And all of a sudden, you're not so alone. And then when you hear, life will give me the exact set of situations I need in order to become a conscious human being, you go, oh, that makes more sense now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Um, so, for this audience who might be new to the idea of conscious human being, can you break that down a little bit, what does it mean to be a conscious human being?
Well, I love metaphors, because I think a picture is worth a thousand words. And one of my favorite metaphors lately is just imagine the most beautiful ocean you could ever imagine. And that's the ocean of being. And you lived in that ocean when you were very, very little, because there was a time when there was not one thought in your head, not one. And now they say there's 65,000 thoughts a day. And I say that 95% of them are repeats from the day before.
Yeah.
So what happened to all of us is that we got caught in our mind. So on that ocean is a small opaque bubble. That is what I call the bubble of struggle. And if you had a little door on your forehead, you could open it up and you could watch the ticker tape of your thoughts all day long, you'll see they are always struggling. They like this, they don't like that. They think this is good, this is bad, this is right, that is wrong. And most people are so caught in that bubble, they're not even aware they're cut off from the ocean of being. So that is being unconscious. You're unconscious of this moment of your life. You don't really see it. You don't really taste it. You don't really smell it. Maybe for a split second before you go back into the bubble of struggle. So becoming a conscious human being is learning how to use your mind rather than being lost in it. And the more you do that, the more you rest in the ocean of being, which is this moment and which is your home.
Yeah, thank you for that metaphor. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
And like as you were explaining it, I was visualizing it.
Mm,
Very powerful.
It's very once you begin to come back to life, once you begin to learn how to unhook from the storyteller in your head that talks all day long, the 65,000 thoughts that you have a day, then you begin to see that this moment is your home. You can't try to be here. Oh, I want to live in the now. That's more struggle. But as far as I can see, our assignment is to learn how to see how we struggle, and that thins the clouds of struggle. And
Mhm.
this moment makes itself known.
Yeah. I want to transition to you were talking about struggle, and right now we are in so much struggle.
Huge.
That's an understatement uh, of the millennium. But how, with everything that's going on in the world with distance learning, pandemic, being in quarantine, and parents really struggling.
Absolutely. And not having school, and oh my God, and special children need that connection. It is a challenging time. And then you add Black Lives Matter and all that's happening with the police and all of that. But I want to tell a wonderful story told by Elizabeth Sahtouris, who is an evolutionary biologist. And this is her take on the butterfly story. That here's the caterpillar that is a being that takes. He just eats and eats and eats, and he has a very limited world, maybe one tree in his lifetime. Then he goes into the cocoon. Then he turns into goo, and out of that goo begin to come what the biologists call imaginal cells. I love that. That's the first forerunner of the butterfly. And the goo always kills the first wave of imaginal cells. And that causes the imaginal cells to come together, and that community is stronger than the goo, and out comes the butterfly, which is a being that gives. It gives beauty, it pollinates, monarch butterflies can fly from Canada to Mexico. I mean, that's a much bigger world than a tree. I think that is a great metaphor for what's happening for us right now. I did a radio show a couple of months ago about the shift from the me kind of consciousness to the we kind of consciousness. That the me kind of consciousness is like the goo, and the me kind of consciousness doesn't care about the environment and doesn't care about, it doesn't care about others. It cares for themselves. And I think all of this chaos is bringing us together. There's been such wonderful comings together on Zoom and on people, stepping outside their balconies at 7 o'clock to, thank the, essential workers. And we could go on of all sorts of coming togethers. I think there's things that we will never, ever lose that has come from this time of understanding all of our vulnerabilities, of truly understanding how much more difficult it is if you have black and brown skin, in this country to, make a go of it. I mean, there's just so many gifts that we have gathered. Yes, it's been challenging. Yes, all great times are challenging. And yet, just like with uh, dealing with being a parent of a challenged child, it is going to grow you. It is going to bring you gifts that you never ever would have known if you hadn't had this challenge. I think it's true also for the earth.
Mm, yeah. And one of the things that you wrote about was that when we realize that there's nothing to hold on to,
Yes,
then everything is constantly changing. When we
exactly.
accept that,
Yeah,
then we don't, it's almost like letting
yeah,
go of that resistance of wanting things to be differently,
yeah,
which causes us to
yeah,
suffer.
yeah. And that's such a huge shift because we hate uncertainty. Well, no, the better way to say it is the mind hates uncertainty.
Mhm.
But who we truly are knows that life is a constantly unfolding process and nothing ever stays the same. I live in a 106-year-old cottage. One day it won't be here. Rome was a great civilization. That civilization is no longer here. Everything is changing, but we can go back to what we talked about earlier, that in a way, this life is a trustable process. It's not always a likable process, but it is a trustable process. And the more you get that, the more you realize it happens for you, the more you relax into the process. And then these favorite words of mine come. Don't know. Don't know to our mind is, oh my God, I don't know, I don't know. Don't know to who we are is, oh, I don't need to know. I don't have to know. I will relax into life and I know life is supporting me. And whatever I need will be brought to me at the right time and the right way.
Um, yes, just listening to you talk and what you're saying is like, I just want to put that on repeat. Like, it's so calming.
Yeah,
And when you're in that state of like, just like giving up all having to
yeah,
control and
yeah,
just in pure
yeah,
acceptance,
yeah.
it's really freeing. It's really calming.
Yeah, yeah, freeing, calming, and in my book, The Gift of Our Compulsions, there's a story about the house of your being and how all the doors and windows were open when you were very young, and then slowly and surely the doors and windows got locked, and curtains and parts of yourself got locked in all sorts of rooms, and then you got caught in the attic of your mind, and slowly and surely in this story you come back and you open the windows and everything, but there's the basement, and you finally go down into the basement, and those are what's there is the deepest, most vulnerable parts of you that you have hated and feared, and you set them free. You notice something you've never noticed before. There's a circular room down in the basement, and you walk all around it, and there's no doors into it, but you feel this warmth coming from it. So you sit down in front of it, and you just bask in its warmth. And then you open your eyes, and the walls have dissolved, and there is a wellspring. And that is at the heart of every single human being. Most of us don't access our wellspring of wisdom because our minds are so busy and noisy. But the wellspring of wisdom is speaking to us in a very quiet voice, in resonance, in what resonates. And so we can truly, the more we let go, the more we surrender. That's a dirty word to the ego, but surrender is just letting go and knowing that life is smarter than you. The wellspring of wisdom, you will never ever feel alone again, because you will see that you are supported every step of the way.
What is what is one way that somebody can access that well wellspring?
I think the most important thing to access everything that we've talked about today is to open our breath again. There was a study done once of children and their breathing practices, and all of them were breathing like kittens breathe. All their whole trunk, their stomach, their whole everything was involved with their breath. Actually, the whole body is, if you watch it very carefully. And by the time these children went to first grade, not one of them was breathing their natural breath. They had learned how to hold their breath. We all hold our breath. And when we hold our breath, we turn on the fight or flight part of our nervous system. It may be just slight unease, but it can blow up into not only anxiousness, but deep terror. And so to begin to open your breath, to use when you're watching TV, or when you wake up in the middle of the night, or when you're sitting on the toilet, or you're commuting. The most powerful breath I know of is the long, slow out breath, that you breathe in and then you breathe out just a little bit longer than you usually do. And then you breathe in and you breathe out just a little bit longer. There's no effort here, there's no stress, but you're retraining your breath, out breath, to be long and slow. And when you breathe a more fuller out breath, you naturally breathe a more fuller in breath. And this will energize you, this will calm you, this will inspire you. There's no accident that an in breath is inspiration. It is the most wonderful gift. And, if you are having a very challenging day with your children, give yourself a timeout and go to the bathroom and lock the door and sit on the toilet and breathe your long, slow out breath.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of times people focus on the in breath, like the very
Yeah.
slow inhale, and then they don't think so much about the out
Yeah.
breath. But
Yeah.
you're saying,
But you can add more stress. There's no stress in the long, slow out breath. It's that letting go. And you can even add the great sound of letting go to that breath. Ah. Whereas if you try to take a deeper in breath, there's some effort in that.
Mhm. And then with the out breath, you're breathing out from your mouth, right? Not
Yes. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Right.
beautiful. Beautiful. Um, I also wanted to just briefly touch on one other part that I thought was very interesting. And you talked about just when we are feeling fearful to just acknowledge the
Yes.
fear. And
Yes.
the acronym of fears, false evidence appearing
Appearing as
real.
real, and yet it feels so real. And this storyteller, this bubble of struggle, is based on fear, and it's glued together with judgment. And so we go round and around, and then we're happy when everything calms down, but then it uncalms down, and we're back and forth and back and forth. And so I was raised in terror. I wasn't raised in fear, I was raised in terror. And my main experience of life, until I started awakening back into life, was dread. And it was this experience of something, oh, just something horrible is going to happen. And it's going to happen because I did something wrong. And I went to therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists and group therapy and hypnotherapy, you name it, hospitals, everything. And it was when I learned how to say, oh, that's fear, rather than I am afraid. Why
Mhm.
is that so powerful? Because in that moment, you stepped out of the bubble of struggle and you are relating to fear rather than being caught in it. Now, you may go right back into that story in the next second, but that moment counts. And it's like drops of water in a bucket, and you may look down after a few months and go, oh, there's not even the bottom of the bucket isn't even covered over. But I assure you, you just keep it. You can do it with fear, you can do it with shame, you can do it with despair, with sadness, with loneliness, with irritation, with anger, with self-pity, with jealousy, you name it. That every time you say, oh, that's here, rather than I am, like we're talking about fear, I am afraid, you add a drop of water in the bucket of your awakening. And slowly and surely, these stories, these thoughts that are based on fear and glued together with judgment, now can more easily flow right on through you. Oh, that's fear. Hi, bye.
Yeah. And I just want to, tell everybody that's a practice, right? At
Yes,
first it's quite effortful to have to
at the beginning, absolutely.
it's not our automatic,
Yeah,
system. We're not
yeah,
taught that. So
yeah,
then anytime we're introduced to something new, there's, like you have to train yourself to do
yeah,
it. But
yeah.
it does get easier with
Oh,
time.
it does. And that's why giving yourself 5 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, uh, consistency is much more important than quantity. Oh, I've got to sit for 20 minutes twice a day, and we do it for a week and then we don't do it anymore. But 5 minutes a day where you spend a minute or so, that long, slow out breath. And then you just rest in the rising and falling of your breath. You may be only able to do it for 2 seconds before your attention goes back up into your stories. But you first learn to say, oh, stories. And then you bring your attention back. And every time you do, you strengthen that muscle of attention. So slowly and surely, you're resting in your breath. And then all of a sudden you go, oh my God, I forgot my oil change yesterday. Oh my God, I'm never going to take my car back to that place because they're going to be so mad at me. And you go, oh, that's shame. And then you bring your attention back. Just 5 minutes a day. Who doesn't have 5 minutes?
Mhm. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Um, I just want to be mindful of the time, but we're just wrapping up here. Mary, could you share with this audience your free gift that you're offering?
Oh, I didn't talk to Deborah about it. I would imagine that I am doing, I'm in the middle of my Gift of Our Compulsions online course right now. But then we're doing the What's in the Way is the Way course in January. And I would imagine it's the $200 off of that course.
It is giveaways. Oh, it's Breathe Fully 2 CD sets of.
Oh, great. Oh, well, yeah, yeah. Ignore what I said. Yes. Oh, that's a wonderful CD set because it talks a lot about, breath in the first CD and how powerful it is and all the gifts it brings. But in the second CD are 10 or 11 breath practices that you can listen to that will guide you.
So, okay, so they're actually MP3s though, right? So they're
Yeah,
audio files.
right.
Okay. the CD.
Yeah. Yeah. Send you the link.
Yes.
Right.
Actually, I have the link, and this link, the link will be underneath this video for everybody to
Good.
obtain. So, and it's free, so please go ahead and download that. And thank you, Mary, for that amazing gift, and
Mm,
also for your time and sharing
it's
your,
been
your
wonderful.
knowledge. It's been beautiful, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Eureka. I'm just so glad that we have explored together today.